Hello, I'm Tom, and I am continuing my playthrough of the game Satisfactory. This video is about Phase 2 of the 5 phases of the game. Phase 2 unlocks a great deal of new features, but is still only a stepping stone. Phase 2 is really all about steel. Iron is about digging iron ore out of the ground and then making iron parts with it. But steel is about iron and coal together. I seem to have a reasonable amount of coal and some iron on the part of the map that I've explored. But that isn't the only type of ore available on the map. I seem to have on this randomized ore map a great deal of easily available bauxite, which will turn into aluminum in Phase 4. I also have my fair share of uranium, which right now is just a hazard because it's radioactive and it damages you if you get too close to it. I have never played this game and made a nuclear power plant. We might choose to do a nuclear power plant in this run. I'm not sure. I think we should give it a try. Maybe. Going into Phase 2, I knew I needed more power. And Phase 2 opens up the use of coal power, coal generators, which means putting coal miners on the available coal nodes and then belting that coal straight to coal generators. Coal generators always also require water, and you get water from, well, water. The coal can be belted straight into the 8 generators. Almost any way you set it up will work just fine. And the water needs to be balanced in a distinctive way that is not hard once you've done it a couple times. The specific problem is that all 3 of the water pumps generate, I believe, 360 water per minute, because each one naturally generates 120 water per minute unless you overclock. If you fully overclock a water pump, you can get 300 out of it. Now that's kind of convenient because the Mark I pipes that we have to work with only carry 300 per minute. So if you have 3 water pumps generating 360 water per minute, and you have a Mark I pipe to carry that water, you have a problem. The Mark I pipe cannot carry the last 60 per minute water. But it turns out, because the 45 per minute water is what each coal generator asks for, 8 of the coal generators also ask for 360 coal per minute. So in the rig between the 8 generators and the 3 pumps, the limiting factor are those pipes. And the answer is basically to make a loop. Make sure that the water gets sent in from both ends of both the water pump and the coal generator side, making a loop of pipe. Essentially doubles the amount of space that the total set of water is moving through, ensuring that the pipe is not limiting the whole structure to 300. And I'm actually pretty proud of what I did to build the building and decorate it. This is the first time that I used transparent ceiling tiles, and I really like how much light they let through so that the inside of my building is not dark and morose like many of my previous buildings. I'm actually pretty happy with my moving forward with my ability to build buildings with this particular coastal power plant. Now I'd really like to talk about the next power plant, which I'll call my lake power plant. There is a lake in the grassy fields biome that everyone uses for their first coal power plant because it's easily accessible, there's plenty of space and water, and in the regular game there's plenty of coal, which is to say there's plenty of coal nodes. Now, of course, my nodes are all randomized, but I was able to find a node. Now, this power plant is a little bit stronger than the last one we saw because I've overclocked all 7 of the coal generators, and I had to overclock the water pumps to keep up. But I got it done, and it works just fine. However, I thought that I was doing something cute by making a non-rectangular building around it. And that's neat. It took a little bit of doing, but it wound up looking basically like a prison. And the guard tower on the right certainly didn't help anything. So I may go back and redesign or re-ornament this building at some point because it looks a bit foreboding. Maybe I'll just get rid of the guard tower. Initially, I made a small power plant, coal power plant, on a hill to the south of my main base. I found a little bit of water from a very small nearby lake and a minor coal node. But then I remembered that I should be looking for sulfur, because with sulfur and coal together you can make something called compacted coal, which essentially is more efficient than regular coal. And since I'm summer slooping almost everything I can get away with in this game, it would be worth twice as much as that anyway. But I could not for the life of me find sulfur anywhere on my explored part of the map. I'm sure there's probably lots of sulfur elsewhere, but I was not coming up with sulfur until I utterly stumbled across a normal sulfur node right where I needed it to be, right next to that original coal generator. With that coal and sulfur combination, I immediately wanted to redesign that original coal plant. And so I did. After doing my calculations, figuring out that I could get 150 coal and 150 sulfur, put it together into 300 compacted coal using summer sloops. I was able then to turn that into power for 16 fully overclocked coal power plants. I absolutely took up every inch of the rest of that small lake to get enough water for such a power plant. But it worked. And after I completed the 16 generator power plant and brought it online, I deleted my original 6-unit power plant because I certainly couldn't give it any more of the coal that I was giving completely over to the new power plant. I tried a more ornamental design for the 6 pipes that ran from the lake to my 16 generators. And I'm pretty happy with how it came out. The wedge shape is kind of almost has a UFO feeling. I spent some time decorating the power plant, and I'm pretty happy with how that came out too. I'm starting to get comfortable taking walls and turning them into angled roofs, and that's pretty fun. And I still very much like the glass ceiling tiles, which not only look pretty good in my opinion, but also let a lot of light in. I built those power plants, but ultimately the important thing is the new factories that built all of my phase 2 parts and all of my necessary pieces of equipment. I built a larger multi-level factory that brought in copper, iron, and coal. And then I built a kind of subsidiary factory that brought in silica and limestone. I used Satisfactory tools to map out how I was going to produce all the parts I needed, how many times I could get away with slooping the machines. Turns out it's actually pretty easy to put sloops into the last machine in a chain of machines. That just doubles the output of the last machine and doesn't change any of the other analysis or diagram of how the parts work. But also there were several parts of the internal structure that I could use sloops on because it would save me machines. Specifically, there was a part that would have taken 4 constructors, but with sloops it simply took 2 constructors. And here is my silica and limestone processing plant that really only exists to make concrete and silica powder, I think, and raw quartz. And while none of these are finished products by themselves, they are all very important raw materials for the rest of the processing line. Also, it's pretty important for all of these things to go into the dimensional depots. The concrete, of course, and the steel plates and steel rods are all fundamental to building the walls and floors of the buildings. I can't really build a lot of structure, a lot of the actual buildings without concrete and the iron plates. All of the columns and ceilings and things are made out of concrete. Also, if there's glass anywhere, it's made out of silica. And that includes the glowing signs and things. And there's lots of crystal parts that are going to come along later in the game, including crystal oscillators, of course, and lots of alternate recipes. There's a lot of things like computers that I could make almost entirely with crystals. This factory came together quickly and easily, except for the fact that the limestone ore came out of the ground right next to a uranium ore node, which I could not get too close to. Eventually, of course, I will get the hazmat suit that will allow me to tolerate radiation. But for now, I am not protected against poison gas or radiation this early in the game, though I'm fairly close to getting the gas mask. And if I worked at it right now, I bet I could get the gas mask. Because I'm on phase 2, I was also able to start building hypertubes, which are good for point-to-point quick travel, which is what I set up here, having a tube from my main factory back to my main base. And also, you can have hypertube cannons, which are carefully constructed hypertube structures that can launch you a long distance. But now I just use my hypertube to get back to my base and start the actual process of moving on to phase 3. Again, phase 3 will get me lots of amazingly fun stuff, like oil, and therefore plastic and rubber, and also trains, which I've become good at and which I really, really enjoy. So I'm hoping that in subsequent episodes of this playthrough, you can join me as I ride the rails and have a lot more fun with Satisfactory. Thanks for watching.
Phase 2 of Project Assembly completed. You have been performing more adequately under pressure and are closer than ever to saving the day. Perhaps you were the right choice for the job. Time will tell. You will now enter Phase 3 of Project Assembly. Continue as you are, and there should be no issue. For humanity. For Fix-It.